A loud slap echoes through the first-class cabin. 5-year-old Zaria reels backward, her tiny hand clutching her stinging cheek as the blonde flight attendant, Heather Whitmore, towers over her. "I told you to sit down," Heather hisses. The cabin falls silent. Passengers pretend not to notice, all except one woman emerging from the bathroom, her eyes burning with fury. Dr. Imani Carter, chief legal counsel for SkyWest Airlines and Zaria's mother, strides forward. "Get your hands off my daughter," she whispers, her voice deadly calm. "Before we continue this shocking story, where are you watching from today? If you believe in justice and standing up against discrimination, please hit that like button and subscribe to catch more eye-opening stories that expose the truth. What would you do if someone slapped your child?" Dr. Imani Carter was not a woman who intimidated easily. As the newly appointed chief legal counsel for SkyWest Airlines, she had shattered countless glass ceilings throughout her 15-year career. At 38, she was already legendary in corporate law circles for her uncompromising ethics and razor-sharp legal mind. Today's flight to Chicago should have been routine, the first step toward her inaugural board meeting presentation tomorrow. Instead, it had become a nightmare. "Mommy, I just wanted my teddy," Zaria whimpered, her large brown eyes brimming with tears. The 5-year-old's pink backpack had fallen during turbulence, sending her beloved stuffed bear sliding 3 rows forward. "I understand, baby," Imani soothed, though her eyes never left Heather Whitmore's face. The 47-year-old flight attendant's expression had morphed from righteous anger to dawning horror as recognition set in. "Dr. Carter, I didn't realize. I was just following protocol for turbulence," Heather stammered, her previously commanding voice now trembling. "The child was out of her seat during the fasten seatbelt sign." "My daughter has a name," Imani replied, her phone already recording. "And protocol doesn't include assaulting minors." The first-class cabin remained uncomfortably silent. Passengers buried their faces in magazines or stared fixedly out windows, pretending the incident wasn't happening. Only one elderly white woman made brief eye contact with Imani, her expression sympathetic before quickly looking away. "Is there a problem here?" Captain Bradford Wells appeared, his 52-year-old frame filling the narrow aisle as he surveyed the scene with practiced neutrality. "Your flight attendant struck my 5-year-old daughter across the face," Imani stated, her lawyer's precision leaving no room for misinterpretation. "I'm documenting the incident and will be filing a formal complaint upon landing." Captain Wells glanced from Imani's recording phone to Heather's now pale face. "Ms. Whitmore? I didn't." Heather's eyes widened further as her gaze landed on Imani's company ID partially visible in her open purse. "Oh God, you're that Dr. Carter, the new legal counsel." "That's correct," Imani confirmed, watching Heather's demeanor transform instantly. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding." Heather attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I would never intentionally harm a child. I was simply trying to guide her back to her seat during dangerous turbulence." "By slapping her?" Imani asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Captain Wells cleared his throat. "We'll address this properly once we've landed. For now, I'll have another attendant assigned to this cabin." As he escorted a visibly shaken Heather away, Imani held Zaria close, feeling her daughter's silent tears soaking through her silk blouse. This wasn't their first encounter with discrimination, but it was certainly the most brazen. What Heather didn't know was that Imani had specifically accepted the SkyWest position after hearing troubling reports about the company's treatment of minority passengers and employees. She'd intended to address these issues from within, but never imagined becoming a victim herself on day one. The incident had lasted barely 2 minutes, but Imani knew it would change everything. She just didn't realize how extensive and dangerous those changes would become. The wheels of the Boeing 787 screeched against Chicago O'Hare's runway as Flight 1563 completed its journey from Atlanta. For Imani, the real battle was only beginning. Leading Zaria by the hand, she made her way directly to the customer service desk at the gate, her stride purposeful despite the whispers and stares following them. "I need to file a formal complaint immediately," Imani informed the gate manager, a middle-aged man whose name tag identified him as Marcus Fitzgerald. Marcus barely looked up from his computer. "I can give you a customer feedback form. Processing time is 4 to 6 weeks. "This isn't about lost luggage," Imani stated firmly. "Your employee physically assaulted my child mid-flight. I need to speak with your supervisor and airport security now." Have you ever noticed how sometimes people in authority positions dismiss serious complaints? Comment number 1 if you've ever had your concerns minimized by someone who should have helped. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of age or race. And subscribe to see more stories about standing up against injustice. What would you do if someone tried to sweep violence against your child under the rug? Marcus finally looked up, his eyes narrowing as they moved from Imani to Zaria. "Ma'am, let's not exaggerate. I'm sure whatever happened was a misunderstanding." "I have video evidence," Imani countered, holding up her phone. "I'd like to send it to my email for documentation before speaking with authorities." Something flickered across Marcus's face. "Of course. Our customer service lounge has better Wi-Fi just through those doors." Inside the designated room, Imani attempted to email herself the video, but the file refused to send. "Connection error" flashed repeatedly despite full Wi-Fi bars. After the 5th attempt, her fully charged phone suddenly displayed a critical battery warning and shut down. "That's impossible," Imani muttered, pressing the power button frantically. When she emerged from the lounge, 2 uniformed security officers were waiting with Marcus and Heather, who had somehow beaten them to the gate despite exiting the plane last. "Ms. Carter?" The taller officer addressed her, pointedly omitting her professional title. "I'm Officer James Holloway, and this is Officer Timothy Bennett. We understand there was an incident on your flight." Before Imani could respond, Heather spoke, her voice trembling theatrically. "I was just doing my job, enforcing safety protocols during severe turbulence. The child was endangering herself and others by running in the aisle. I merely guided her back to her seat." "She slapped my daughter across the face," Imani stated, reaching for her now dead phone. "I have video evidence, but my phone just died, unexpectedly." Officer Bennett exchanged glances with Holloway. "Convenient," he murmured. "My daughter's face is still red," Imani pointed out, tilting Zaria's tear-stained face up toward the fluorescent lights. "And there were multiple witnesses." "Children cry for lots of reasons," Holloway shrugged, "especially during scary turbulence." From the corner of her eye, Imani noticed a tall, silver-haired man in an expensive suit, observing their interaction from a discreet distance. He spoke briefly into a phone before disappearing into the crowd. "Look, Dr. Carter," Marcus interjected, suddenly remembering her title. "You have an important meeting tomorrow, don't you? These things can escalate unnecessarily. Perhaps it's best to focus on your presentation rather than this unfortunate misunderstanding." How did he know about her meeting? Imani hadn't mentioned it. "This isn't over," Imani stated firmly, conscious of Zaria's increasingly distressed state and her own time constraints. As they turned to leave, a black female flight attendant Imani hadn't seen before brushed past them, discreetly slipping something into Imani's jacket pocket. Only in the taxi did Imani discover a business card for Desiree Washington Sr., flight attendant, with a personal cell number hastily scribbled on the back and 2 words, "Not alone." Meanwhile, Zaria hadn't spoken a single word since the incident, her normally chatty personality replaced by a hollow-eyed silence that frightened Imani more than anything else. The gleaming glass headquarters of SkyWest Airlines towered 52 stories above downtown Chicago, a monument to air travel dominance. Imani straightened her charcoal suit jacket as she approached the executive conference room, forcing her mind to shift from mother mode to attorney mode. She'd spent the sleepless night preparing her presentation, while simultaneously researching passenger rights violations. Zaria had finally fallen asleep only after Imani promised they'd never fly SkyWest again, a promise that complicated her career significantly. "Dr. Carter, a word before you go in?" Trent Armstrong, the company's chief operating officer, intercepted her in the hallway. At 55, Armstrong exuded the confidence of someone accustomed to unquestioned authority. "Mr. Armstrong, good morning." I was hoping to discuss yesterday's incident with you. Armstrong's smile didn't reach his eyes. That's exactly what I wanted to address. I heard there was some misinterpretation on your flight. Misinterpretation? Imani kept her voice level. Your employee struck my 5-year-old daughter across the face. These situations are rarely black and white, Armstrong replied, then winced at his unfortunate phrasing. What I mean is, Heather Whitmore has been with us 15 years, exemplary record. I fail to see how that justifies assault. Armstrong lowered his voice. What you may not know is that Heather is Walter Whitmore's niece. Walter sits on our board and chairs the compensation committee. The implication hung in the air between them. Are you suggesting I ignore what happened because of her connections? Imani asked incredulously. I'm suggesting you consider the larger picture. Your position here is still probationary, creating scenes on company flights, making accusations against valued employees. It doesn't look good, Imani. The board specifically wanted someone who would integrate smoothly with our corporate culture. Imani felt ice forming in her stomach. Is that a threat, Mr. Armstrong? A friendly word of advice. We've all had to make accommodations to advance our careers. He patted her shoulder. Your presentation materials have been loaded. The board is waiting. The boardroom fell silent as Imani entered. 12 executives, 11 of them white, watched her approach the podium. Walter Whitmore, a jowly 68-year-old with thinning hair, made no attempt to hide his scowl. Dr. Carter, your analysis of our regulatory compliance vulnerabilities, please, Board Chair Victoria Lambert prompted. Imani nodded, clicking to advance her first slide. What appeared wasn't her meticulously prepared analysis, but a page titled, Recommended Terminations, Problematic Employees. Her own name topped the list. Several board members murmured. Walter Whitmore smirked. There seems to be an error, Imani stated calmly, clicking to the next slide, then the next. Each had been altered, subtly undermining her position or making her look incompetent. Technical difficulties, Dr. Carter? Walter asked with exaggerated concern. Taking a deep breath, Imani set aside the presentation remote. Ladies and gentlemen, since my prepared materials have been compromised, allow me to speak frankly about the regulatory and legal vulnerabilities I've already identified within SkyWest. Beginning with the systemic mishandling of passenger assault reports. For the next 30 minutes, Imani delivered a masterful impromptu presentation, citing regulations and relevant case law entirely from memory. Several board members appeared impressed despite themselves, while others exchanged uncomfortable glances. When she finished, Victoria Lambert nodded tersely. Thank you, Dr. Carter. The board will consider your recommendations. Exiting the boardroom, Imani swiped her access card at the elevator leading to her new office. Card error. Access denied, flashed the red digital display. Her company phone chimed with an email notification. Urgent. Performance review meeting. Tomorrow 8 a.m. Re-probationary status concerns. The corporate noose was tightening, and Imani suddenly understood she was fighting something much larger and more insidious than one racist flight attendant. They're trying to push you out, Gabriela Rodriguez stated flatly, pushing her designer glasses up her nose. The 42-year-old VP of Human Resources had been Imani's first call after the board meeting disaster. They sat in a quiet corner of a coffee shop 3 blocks from SkyWest headquarters, away from prying eyes. The question is why this level of protection for a flight attendant, Imani replied, warming her hands around a barely touched cappuccino. Even with the nepotism angle, the company is taking an enormous risk. Gabriella leaned forward. Walter Whitmore isn't just a board member. He's old money aviation, connected to half the executives in the industry, and Trent Armstrong is his protege. They've built a power structure here that doesn't tolerate threats. And I've become a threat by simply reporting an assault on my child, by having evidence of it, and by being who you are. A black female executive with the legal knowledge to recognize discrimination patterns. You were hired as a diversity checkbox, Imani. They never expected you to actually exercise power. Imani's phone buzzed with a news alert. Her stomach dropped as she read the headline. New Sky West legal exec and passenger altercation. Sources claim child endangerment. They're moving fast, she muttered, showing Gabriella the screen. This is coordinated, Gabriella agreed. You need allies inside. I can help. Discreetly pull some files, see what patterns emerge. Thank you, Imani said, genuinely moved. I knew I could count on you. 2 hours later, back in her hotel room watching Zaria finally napping peacefully, Imani overheard hotel staff whispering outside her door. That's the one from the news. Flight attendant said she let her kid run wild on the plane, threatened to sue when they tried to control the situation. The narrative was being rewritten, and rapidly. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. Dr. Carter, Desiree Washington here. We need to talk. I'm not the only one with stories about Heather Whitmore. They arranged to meet at a small diner miles from any Sky West facility. Desiree arrived wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day, nervously scanning the restaurant before sliding into the booth. I'm risking everything talking to you, the 33-year-old flight attendant began without preamble. But what happened to your daughter isn't isolated. Heather has a history of incidents with passengers of color, especially those in first class. She's been reported at least 7 times that I know of. Nothing ever sticks. How is that possible? Imani asked, though she already suspected. Complaints disappear. Evidence gets lost. Witnesses change stories after private conversations with management. Desiree's hands trembled slightly. 3 black flight attendants who filed supporting statements were terminated for unrelated performance issues within months. I need documentation, Desiree. Anything concrete. That's why I contacted you. There's a group of us, current and former employees, documenting the pattern. But we needed someone with legal expertise and... She hesitated. Institutional power. Imani's phone rang, Gabriella's name flashing on screen. Excuse me, she told Desiree before answering. Gabriella, what's wrong? I can't help you after all. Gabriella's voice was strained, professional. Upon reflection, my position requires complete company loyalty. I'm sure you understand. Gabriella, what happened? Nothing happened. I've simply reconsidered the appropriate boundaries of our relationship. Also, your temporary office has been reassigned to accommodate organizational restructuring. Facilities will contact you regarding alternate arrangements. Good day, Dr. Carter. The line went dead. Imani stared at her phone in disbelief. Let me guess, Desiree said grimly. Another ally disappeared? She flipped completely. And apparently, I now have no office. They're isolating you. Desiree nodded knowingly. Standard procedure. Next will come the IT audit, claiming routine security protocols while they search for anything to use against you. As if on cue, Imani's email pinged, Notice, routine security audit, all devices required. How did you know? Because I've seen it before, Desiree replied. The question is, are you ready to fight back? Because once you start, they'll come at you with everything they have. Imani thought of Zaria's silent tears, of the decades of similar injustices swept under corporate rugs, of how easily powerful systems protected themselves by crushing individuals. I don't have a choice, she said finally. If I back down now, what message does that send my daughter? That mommy couldn't protect her? That powerful people can hurt her without consequences? Desiree nodded slowly. Then welcome to the resistance, Dr. Carter. But I should warn you. This is going to get much worse before it gets better. Imani had no idea just how prophetic those words would prove to be, nor how personally devastating the next phase of Sky West's retaliation would become. Mommy, when can we go home? Zaria's small voice broke the silence of their hotel room, the first words she'd spoken in nearly 24 hours. The sound should have brought Imani relief, but the fear underlying her daughter's question only deepened her anguish. Soon, baby. Mommy's handling some work stuff first. Imani forced brightness into her tone, hiding the mounting dread that had been building since 3 a.m. when Zaria's first nightmare had torn through the darkness. The child had awoken screaming, small body rigid with terror, crying out, "Don't hit me!" over and over until exhaustion finally pulled her back to fitful sleep. Have you ever faced a moment when your child was hurting and you felt powerless to fix it? Comment number 1 if you've ever had to be strong for your child while fighting your own battles. Hit that like button if you believe protecting our children should be society's top priority. And subscribe if you want to see justice served in stories like these. What would you sacrifice to keep your child safe from harm? Imani's phone vibrated with another call from Zaria's school principal back in Atlanta. Third one today. Dr. Carter, I'm concerned about Zaria. Her teacher reports sudden behavioral changes, withdrawal from activities, refusal to speak during circle time. Is everything all right at home? The implication in the principal's tone was clear, and it knocked the wind from Imani's lungs. Now they were targeting her parenting? Zaria witnessed a traumatic event yesterday, Imani explained tightly. We're working through it. I see. Well, given these concerns, perhaps we should schedule a meeting with our school counselor when you return. Documentation is important in these situations. Documentation. The word hung ominously in Imani's mind long after the call ended. They were building a paper trail. Her mother Eleanor's call came next, her normally steady voice trembling with emotion. Imani, I just saw something horrible on the news about you and Zaria. They're implying you. None of it's true, Mom. It's retaliation. I'm handling it. You need to bring Zaria home. Let me help. I can't leave Chicago yet. This presentation could... Forget the job. Your daughter needs stability right now. I know that, Imani snapped, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm trying to hold everything together. I'm coming to Chicago. Booking a flight now. Mom, your heart is fine. Stress isn't good for it though, so don't argue with me. The knock on the hotel door came just as Imani ended the call. A uniformed hotel manager stood in the hallway, expression carefully neutral. Dr. Carter, I apologize, but we've received multiple noise complaints about your room, specifically a child crying through the night. My daughter had nightmares. She's 5. I understand, but our guests expect a certain atmosphere. Perhaps a different hotel would better accommodate your needs. He handed her a bill. We've adjusted your stay to check out today. Forced to relocate to a less prestigious hotel miles from SkyWest headquarters, Imani spent the afternoon making desperate calls to her office, all going straight to voicemail. When her phone finally rang, it wasn't work returning her calls. It was Michael, her ex-husband. What the hell is going on, Imani? Michael's voice was tight with anger. I'm seeing news stories about Zaria being endangered on a flight, and the school called me. It's not what you think, Imani began, but Michael cut her off. It never is with you. Always some conspiracy, some injustice. Meanwhile, our daughter is suffering while you chase your corporate ladder. That's not fair. I'm fighting for her. No, you're fighting for your principles, your causes. Zaria needs stability, not to be dragged into your crusades. The words stung because they targeted Imani's deepest fear, that her dedication to justice came at her daughter's expense. Michael, please. I've consulted my attorney. Given these new concerns and Zaria's obvious distress, we're filing for emergency temporary custody. The room seemed to tilt beneath Imani's feet. You can't be serious. Papers will be served tomorrow. For once, put Zaria first. The line went dead. When Eleanor arrived that evening, her face aged a decade with worry, she found Imani staring blankly at her laptop while Zaria slept fitfully. Sweetheart, you look terrible. They're taking everything, Mom. My job, my reputation, and now Michael's trying to take Zaria. Eleanor wrapped her arms around her daughter, a gesture not shared between them since Imani's teenage years. We'll fight, baby. We always have. At midnight, Eleanor clutched her chest suddenly, gasping for breath. The ambulance came quickly, but the diagnosis was clear: stress-induced cardiac event. As Imani sat beside her mother's hospital bed, Zaria, asleep in a chair nearby, a courier appeared in the doorway. Dr. Imani Carter? He held out a thick envelope. You've been served. Emergency custody hearing, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Imani accepted the papers with numb fingers, fighting the crushing weight of despair threatening to collapse her chest. They had calculated perfectly. attacking when she was most vulnerable, most alone. For the first time since the slap that started it all, Imani felt her resolve beginning to crumble. "They won't stop until they've destroyed everything you care about," Desiree stated flatly, sliding into the corner booth of the 24-hour diner where she'd insisted they meet. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across her exhausted face. "That's their playbook." Imani rubbed her temples, fighting the migraine that had been building since leaving her mother stable but hospitalized. "I need to focus on the custody hearing tomorrow. I can't lose my daughter, Desiree. The hearing is part of their strategy. Divide your attention, force mistakes." Desiree glanced nervously toward the door as it opened, then relaxed slightly as a young Asian man in glasses and a weathered-looking black man approached their table. "Dr. Carter, meet Elijah Chen and Jordan Williams. They're part of our support network." Elijah, 29 with a perpetually worried expression, slid into the booth first. "I handle IT for SkyWest's customer service division, or did until recently. Now I'm on leave while they investigate security irregularities." Jordan, 36 with a military bearing despite his civilian clothes, remained standing, eyes constantly scanning the diner. 8 years as ground crew supervisor until I reported Heather Whitmore for calling a Kenyan family primitive when they struggled with English. 2 weeks later, I was fired for time card discrepancies from 3 years earlier. "There are more of us," Desiree explained. "Current and former employees, passengers who've experienced discrimination. We've been documenting patterns, but we needed someone with your credentials to take it higher." "I appreciate the support," Imani said carefully. "But given what's happening to my family, I need to be strategic about my next steps." Elijah leaned forward. "Dr. Carter, I've been analyzing the video erasure from your phone. It wasn't random. SkyWest installed signal interceptors throughout O'Hare's terminals last year for security purposes. They can selectively block transmissions, access device data, even drain batteries remotely. That's not legal," Imani stated. "Neither is corporate espionage, but they're doing that too." Elijah pushed his glasses up nervously. "I can try to recover your deleted video. The data isn't actually gone, just the access pointers." Imani hesitated. "That would require accessing my phone. If they discover unauthorized software, it would give them ammunition," Jordan finished for her. "Which is exactly why they won't expect it. They think they've already won." "We need to be careful," Imani cautioned. "If they're monitoring this closely, meeting like this puts all of you at risk." "We're already at risk," Desiree countered. "Elijah was suspended yesterday. My shift schedules have been cut in half. Jordan can't get hired anywhere in the industry despite stellar recommendations." Imani's phone buzzed with an alert. "Board meeting rescheduled. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Executive. Compensation and personnel changes." "That's an hour before my custody hearing," Imani realized. "They're forcing me to choose between my job and my daughter." "Classic divide and conquer," Jordan nodded grimly. The diner door opened again, admitting a disheveled white woman clutching a tablet. "Sorry I'm late," she said, sliding in beside Desiree. "Had to make sure I wasn't followed." "Dr. Carter, this is Rebecca Hayes," Desiree introduced. "She was a passenger on your flight." The 44-year-old woman offered a tired smile. "3 rows behind you. I saw everything. That woman had been making snippy comments to every person of color who boarded. But what she did to your daughter was inexcusable." Hope flickered in Imani's chest. "You're willing to testify about what you saw?" "I already tried filing a witness statement at the gate. They took my information but never called. Then yesterday I got this." She slid her tablet across the table, displaying an email from SkyWest's legal department warning of potential liability for defamatory statements. "They're threatening a passenger." Imani was incredulous. "Not just threatening," Rebecca replied. "My apartment was broken into last night. Nothing taken, but my laptop was open when I know I closed it. I'm a freelance journalist. I can't afford a lawsuit. But you came anyway," Imani noted, studying the woman with new respect. "Some things are more important than fear. Plus," Rebecca added, tapping her tablet, "I have this." She pressed play on a video file. The footage was partial, shot from an awkward angle, but clearly showed Heather's hand making contact with Zaria's face in the aftermath. The sound was muffled, but unmistakable. "You recorded it," Imani breathed. Journalist's instinct. Something felt off the moment that flight attendant started working the cabin. "This changes everything," Desiree said, hope creeping into her voice. "Maybe not," Elijah cautioned, studying the metadata. "This video was taken on an airline, involving airline personnel. They'll argue it violates their media policies, try to get it suppressed." Jordan's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. "We've got bigger problems. My contact in HR says they're accelerating the board vote. They're not just coming after Imani's job. They're planning to eliminate the entire legal compliance division and outsource it to a firm controlled by Walter Whitmore's son." The group fell silent, absorbing the implications. Finally, Imani spoke, her voice finding new resolve. "They're not just protecting one racist flight attendant. They're protecting an entire system. That's what we've been trying to tell you," Desiree said softly. "We need more than one video and scattered testimonies," Imani decided. "We need to show the pattern, prove the coordination. That would require access to internal communications, personnel files, complaint records," Elijah trailed off. "Which would be illegal to obtain," Imani finished. "I can't cross that line. Not as an attorney, and not with my daughter's custody at stake." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken understanding. They had reached an impasse. "Dr. Carter?" A new voice interrupted their conversation. All heads turned to see Trent Armstrong standing by their table, camera phone visibly recording. "Fascinating gathering. I wonder what the board would think of our new legal counsel conspiring with terminated employees after hours." Desiree went rigid. Rebecca instinctively shielded her tablet. Elijah looked ready to bolt. "This is a private dinner with friends, Mr. Armstrong," Imani replied evenly, though her heart hammered in her chest. "Of course it is." His smile never reached his cold eyes. "Just coincidentally with individuals who have grievances against our company. I look forward to discussing this remarkable coincidence at tomorrow's board meeting." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Dr. Carter? You've just received a company-wide email. Your temporary leave of absence begins immediately. Security will meet you if you attempt to enter the building tomorrow." After he departed, the group sat in stunned silence. "He was following you," Jordan finally said. "This whole thing was a setup." "No," Imani corrected, a terrible clarity washing over her. "He was following one of you. They know about your group, which means everything. My job, my custody hearing, my mother's hospitalization. It's all been orchestrated to neutralize, not just me, but all of you too." Looking around at their defeated expressions, Imani made a decision that would alter the course of not just her battle, but the entire power structure at SkyWest Airlines. "This ends now," she said, her voice steel, one way or another. Imani's phone exploded with notifications at 5:37 a.m., jolting her from the first fitful sleep she'd managed in days. Bleary-eyed, she unlocked the screen to find dozens of social media alerts, missed calls, and text messages from numbers she didn't recognize. The reason became immediately clear when she opened the first link. A video entitled SkyWest Mom Threatens Flight Crew, had gone viral overnight. The footage showed a carefully edited version of the confrontation, cutting out Heather's slap entirely, and beginning instead with Imani standing over the flight attendant, phone recording, voice raised. Without context, she appeared aggressive, unreasonable. Worse, they'd somehow enhanced the audio to amplify moments when her voice rose with emotion while muting Heather's responses. The comments section overflowed with vitriol, #YarSkywestMom, trending for all the wrong reasons. They released it at 3 a.m. for maximum damage, Elijah confirmed over a hasty phone call. Classic timing. No chance for an immediate response while it spreads unchallenged. By 7 a.m., tabloid sites had picked up the story, each headline more sensational than the last. Corporate lawyer bullies airline staff over discipline of unruly child. SkyWest mom's history of complaints revealed. Sources report pattern of entitlement behavior from new legal exec. Imani's entire professional history had been excavated, distorted, and weaponized. A discrimination case she'd successfully prosecuted in law school became race card lawyer's first attack. Her advocacy for diversity in corporate leadership was reframed as anti-white activism. They'd even dug up a decade-old parking ticket to create the headline, Sky West Mom's History of Law Breaking. The custody hearing loomed 3 hours away. Imani dressed with mechanical precision, reviewing her legal arguments while CNN played in the background. She froze mid-motion when Heather Whitmore's face appeared on screen, expertly made up to conceal any trace of the hardness Imani had witnessed on the plane. "I've dedicated my life to passenger safety," Heather told the sympathetic Fox News interviewer, dabbing at non-existent tears. "To be vilified for following protocol during dangerous turbulence, to have my career threatened because I prevented a child from injuring herself, it's devastating." "And the mother's claims that you struck the child?" the interviewer prompted. "Absolutely false. I would never harm a child. The surveillance footage clearly shows I merely guided her back to her seat during violent turbulence." Dr. Carter became immediately hostile, threatening to use her new position to have me fired. "It's a clear abuse of corporate power." Surveillance footage? There were no cameras in the cabin. The fabrication was so brazen it momentarily stunned Imani. Her phone chimed with a text from Desiree. "They're claiming internal cabin footage. It doesn't exist." A second text followed from Rebecca. "Be careful. Someone spray-painted slurs on my car overnight. They know who's helping you." Imani's personal email inbox had exploded with hundreds of messages, many containing racist slurs, threats, and vicious attacks on her parenting. More disturbingly, several referenced her home address in Atlanta, details of Zaria's school, and even Eleanor's hospital room number. When she called the hospital to warn security, the nurse informed her that several aggressive individuals had already attempted to access her mother's room, claiming to be journalists. Hospital security had been doubled. "Mom, I'm so sorry," Imani whispered as she ended the call, the weight of what she'd unleashed pressing down on her chest. This wasn't just character assassination anymore. It was becoming physically dangerous. Her phone rang. Jordan's number. "Don't come to the diner today," he said without preamble, his voice tight. "They've got people watching it." Elijah spotted surveillance yesterday but thought it might be paranoia. It wasn't. "Is everyone okay?" A heavy pause. "Rebecca's gone quiet. Not answering calls or texts since reporting the vandalism, and I just got fired from my warehouse job. No explanation given." "They're coming after everyone who helps me," Imani realized aloud. "That's their playbook. Total isolation." Jordan's voice hardened. "But they've miscalculated. People are starting to compare the edited video with Rebecca's partial footage that's circulating in some forums. The time codes don't match. Questions are being raised." A sharp knock at Imani's hotel door made her jump. Peering through the peephole, she saw two men with cameras. Somehow they'd found her new hotel. "I have to go. The press found me." "Not the press," Jordan corrected grimly. "Sky West hired private investigators, former police. They'll follow you to the courthouse. Try to provoke a reaction they can film." Imani felt a chill. "How do you know that?" "Because they used the exact same tactics against me last year, right before I lost custody of my kids." The revelation hit Imani like a physical blow. This wasn't just about her. The pattern went much deeper. "Jordan, I need a favor. A big one. Name it. I need a secure way to get to the courthouse without being followed, and I need someone I trust to watch Zaria during the hearing." "I'm already on my way. Back entrance 15 minutes. I've got a friend's car they won't recognize." Ending the call, Imani turned to Zaria, who sat silently clutching her teddy bear, eyes wide with apprehension beyond her years. "Baby, we're going to play a little game, okay? Like spies in the movies." Zaria didn't smile but nodded solemnly. Her daughter's trust, still intact despite everything, nearly broke Imani's composure. She wouldn't let them take this too. As she gathered their things, Imani's work phone chimed with an alert from Elijah. Found something. SkyWest digital security logs show systematic deletion of complaint records. Need legal advice on next steps. Outside, the media circus grew, voices calling her name through the door. But for the first time in days, Imani felt a flicker of hope. The truth was fighting back, one small victory at a time. The courthouse steps loomed before Imani like the entrance to a gladiatorial arena. News vans lined the street, reporters stationed strategically at every approach. Jordan had managed to get her inside through a service entrance, but now she stood alone, briefcase clutched tightly, preparing to fight for her daughter's future. Dr. Carter, is it true you've been suspended pending investigation? Did you threaten to use your position to punish lower-level employees? Can you respond to allegations of a history of race-baiting complaints? Has anyone ever tried to twist your words against you? Comment number 1 if you've ever been falsely accused of something you didn't do. Hit that like button if you believe the justice system should protect families, not tear them apart. And subscribe to see how Imani fights back against this massive conspiracy. What would you do if powerful forces were trying to take your child away using lies and manipulation? Imani pushed through the barrage of questions, eyes fixed on the doors ahead. Inside, the relative quiet of the courthouse offered only momentary respite. Her attempt to file for legal representation had been met with rejection after rejection. 5 law firms all suddenly citing conflicts of interest when they learned the case involved SkyWest. The system is rigged at every level, Eleanor had warned from her hospital bed. You're a lawyer, baby. Represent yourself. Outside courtroom 3C, Michael waited with his attorney, a severe woman in an impeccable suit, whose hourly rate Imani could recite from their divorce proceedings, $750 an hour, and every minute calculated to devastating effect. Imani, Michael acknowledged stiffly, not quite meeting her eyes. Where's Zaria? Safe, Imani replied, unwilling to reveal her daughter's location even to her father. The trust between them had eroded too far. Dr. Carter. Judge Carlton Pierce emerged from his chambers, gesturing for her to approach. At 62, Pierce's distinguished appearance matched his reputation for conservative family values. A word before we begin? In the privacy of a small conference room, Pierce studied Imani with calculated neutrality. I understand you're representing yourself today, not by choice, Your Honor. I've been systematically denied counsel. Pierce's expression didn't change. I see. I should inform you that I intend to conduct this hearing with expedited procedures, given the volatile nature of the situation. The court's primary concern is the child's immediate welfare. Of course, Your Honor, but expedited shouldn't mean abbreviated due process. Due process will be observed, Pierce stated flatly, though something in his tone suggested otherwise. I've already reviewed the submitted materials, including the incident on the aircraft. Your Honor, the video circulating is heavily edited. I have a witness prepared to testify. Dr. Carter, Pierce interrupted. This is not a criminal trial. It's a determination of what environment best serves your daughter's interest during this turbulent period. The court has appointed Dr. Melissa Greenfield to evaluate Zaria this morning. Her recommendations will carry significant weight. Imani's heart sank. Court-appointed evaluators typically required weeks of observation, not hours. That's highly unusual protocol, Your Honor. These are unusual circumstances. Pierce closed his folder. We begin in 20 minutes. The courtroom was surprisingly full when proceedings commenced. Michael's side included character witnesses, colleagues, his pastor, even Zaria's ballet teacher. Imani's side was empty save for Desiree, who had risked her job to appear. Dr. Greenfield's testimony came first, a devastating professional assessment based on a 30-minute interaction with Zaria. The child presents classic symptoms of parental alienation syndrome. She repeatedly expressed reluctance to discuss her father using language that suggests coaching from her mother. Objection, Imani stated, rising. Dr. Greenfield spent less than an hour with my daughter, who recently experienced trauma unrelated to either parent. Your Honor, Michael's attorney interjected smoothly. The trauma in question resulted directly from Dr. Carter's confrontational approach to airline personnel. This pattern of behavior is precisely why temporary custody reassignment is warranted. Judge Pierce nodded. Objection noted but overruled. Please continue, Dr. Greenfield. In my professional opinion, Zaria would benefit from a stable, conflict-free environment while her mother resolves her professional situations. The constant media attention and Dr. Carter's evident stress create an unhealthy atmosphere for a 5-year-old child. Each word struck Imani like a physical blow. They had orchestrated this perfectly, using her fight against injustice as evidence of instability. When Michael took the stand, his testimony was measured, reasonable, the concerned father forced to intervene. I've always supported Imani's career, her ambitions, but this isn't about her job anymore. It's about Zaria being dragged into a public spectacle. Our daughter isn't sleeping, isn't speaking normally. She needs peace, stability. Finally, Imani presented her case: the assault on Zaria, the systematic corporate retaliation, the coordinated media attack. Without Rebecca's testimony or the video evidence, her allegations sounded paranoid, conspiratorial. Judge Pierce's expressions shifted from skepticism to thinly veiled impatience. Dr. Carter, he interrupted during her closing statement, while I appreciate your passionate advocacy, the court must focus on immediate best interests, not corporate conspiracies or racial politics, based on the evidence presented. Your Honor, Imani interjected, before you rule, I feel obligated to note that I've discovered you received campaign donations from SkyWest Airlines during your judicial election, specifically from Walter Whitmore's Political Action Committee. The courtroom fell silent. Pierce's face darkened. Are you implying I have a conflict of interest, Dr. Carter? I'm stating facts relevant to these proceedings, Your Honor. Facts that should have prompted recusal. This is outrageous, Michael's attorney declared. Dr. Carter is attempting to impugn the court's integrity rather than address her own parental deficiencies. Pierce's gavel crashed down. Enough. I find this line of argument both inappropriate and desperate. Based on the testimony presented, I am granting temporary physical custody of Zaria Carter Thompson to her father, effective immediately for a period of 30 days, after which I'm filing an emergency motion for reconsideration, Imani interrupted, pulling documents from her briefcase, and for your recusal, Your Honor. Motion denied, Pierce stated flatly. My clerk will provide the custody transfer documentation. The child is to be delivered to her father's custody by 5 p.m. today. The courtroom began to empty, Michael avoiding Imani's eyes as his attorney whispered triumphantly in his ear. Imani remained seated, the weight of defeat threatening to crush her chest. I'm sorry, Desiree whispered, squeezing her hand. What will you do now? Imani stared at the empty judge's bench, her mind racing through options that dwindled with each passing second. They've taken my job, my reputation, and now my daughter. There's only one thing left to do. What's that? Stop playing by their rules. As they exited the courthouse, a text message appeared from an unknown number. Judge Pierce's campaign finance records mysteriously disappeared from public database this morning. Someone doesn't want your motion seen, but I saved copies. Elijah. A second message followed immediately. Rebecca Hayes is safe. She wasn't ghosting us. They cut her internet and phone service. She's with me now. And you need to see what she found. Jordan. 24 hours. Imani had 24 hours before she would be legally required to hand over her daughter. 24 hours to overturn a system designed to crush individual resistance. Take me to Jordan, she told Desiree, a new fire burning through her exhaustion. It's time to fight fire with fire. The abandoned warehouse on Chicago's South Side hardly seemed like a place where justice would be reborn. Jordan had converted a forgotten office space into a makeshift command center, complete with salvaged computers and a secure internet connection bounced through multiple servers. Here, away from SkyWest surveillance, Imani found Rebecca Hayes and Elijah huddled over a laptop, their faces illuminated by the screen's blue glow. You made it, Rebecca said, relief evident in her voice. After what happened at the courthouse, we weren't sure. I have 24 hours before I'm legally required to surrender Zaria, Imani replied, her voice steady despite the churning in her stomach. Where is she now? With Desiree's sister, Jordan assured her, closing the reinforced door behind them. Former military police. Nobody's getting past her. Elijah motioned Imani to the computer. I managed to recover fragments of your original video from your phone's cache memory. The file wasn't completely erased, just the directory pointers. The screen showed a degraded but clear version of the incident. Heather's hand making sharp contact with Zaria's face, the flight attendant's expression transitioning from anger to horror upon recognizing Imani. The timestamp was intact, proving the edited version circulating online had been deliberately manipulated. That's just the beginning, Jordan said, pulling up another window. Tell her, Tom. A weathered face appeared on a video call. Thomas Harrington, 71, his white hair neatly combed, his eyes sharp despite his age. Dr. Carter, we haven't met. I was in first class 3 rows behind you during the incident. You saw what happened, Imani breathed. The retired judge nodded solemnly. Every second. I kept quiet initially because, frankly, I didn't want the hassle. At my age, you learn to mind your business, but when I saw what they're doing to you, he shook his head. It's unconscionable. Judge Harrington has agreed to provide a sworn affidavit, Jordan explained. And as a former appellate judge, his testimony carries significant weight. They'll discredit me too, Harrington acknowledged. But I've got 40 years on the bench and a reputation that'll be harder to dismantle than yours, no offense. None taken, Imani said, genuine gratitude warming her voice. But will it be enough? Sky West has already shown they can manipulate evidence, pressure witnesses, even influence the courts. Rebecca turned her tablet toward Imani. That's where this comes in. An anonymous Sky West employee sent these to my journalist email after seeing my partial video online. The screen displayed email exchanges between Trent Armstrong and Walter Whitmore, beginning minutes after the airplane incident. From Armstrong Trent to Whitmore, Walter subject, situation with Dr. Carter. Time, 3:42 p.m. Walter, Heather called. Incident with the new legal counsel's daughter on flight 1563. She's claiming assault, has video, need immediate damage control, recommend standard procedure. From Whitmore, Walter to Armstrong, Trent. Subject, situation with Dr. Carter. Time 3:49 p.m. Initiate protocol. 17. Use the O'Hare systems. Get it involved. If she persists, escalate to level 2. We can't afford another discrimination lawsuit. Especially internal. Board meeting tomorrow, perfect timing for personnel restructuring. Handle it. Protocol 17, Imani murmured. They have established procedures for covering up incidents. Lots of them, Elijah confirmed, pulling up more documents. I found references to at least 23 different protocols in the security logs. Most involve evidence manipulation, witness intimidation, or media management. And look at this, Rebecca added, showing a memo detailing recommended responses to discrimination complaints, categorized by passenger demographics and status. They literally have a playbook for handling complaints by race, with different procedures for high-value customers versus standard passengers. Imani studied the documents, her legal mind cataloging violations, corporate conspiracy, evidence, tampering, civil rights violations, possibly even criminal conduct. This goes far beyond one incident. It's systematic. Which is exactly why they're fighting so hard, Jordan noted. Your case isn't just about a slap. It's the thread that could unravel years of institutionalized discrimination. There's more, Elijah said quietly, hesitation evident in his voice. While searching for the protocols, I found financial irregularities, large transfers from Sky West operational accounts to offshore entities controlled by Trent Armstrong. Imani's head snapped up. Embezzlement? Millions over the past 5 years, disguised as vendor payments to shell companies. Walter Whitmore appears to be getting a percentage kickback, but Armstrong is the architect. The room fell silent as the implications settled around them. Finally, Imani spoke, her voice resolute. We have 20 hours to build an ironclad case, not just about Zaria or my job, but about the entire corrupt system. I need everything documented, authenticated, and ready for presentation. To who? Rebecca asked. If the courts are compromised and the media's been manipulated. To the only people who have more to lose than Armstrong and Whitmore, Imani replied. The Sky West Board of Directors. Through the night, they worked tirelessly, assembling evidence, creating secure backups, and preparing legal arguments. By dawn, Imani had outlined a comprehensive presentation exposing not just discrimination patterns but financial fraud that would devastate shareholder value if revealed publicly. At 7:38 a.m., as Imani was reviewing her final preparations, a notification appeared on Jordan's security monitor. Someone's here, he announced, tension evident in his voice. The camera showed a familiar figure approaching the warehouse entrance. Victoria Lambert, 64-year-old chair of the Sky West Board. How did she find us? Rebecca whispered, fear edging her voice. She didn't come alone, Jordan warned, pointing to the sleek black SUV waiting at the curb, 2 security personnel visible inside. Imani stood, smoothing her wrinkled blouse. Let her in. Are you sure? Elijah asked, already backing up critical files. If they wanted to arrest us, they'd have sent police, not the board chair. Imani moved toward the door, determination replacing fear. It's time to end this. Victoria Lambert entered alone, her expensive suit and perfect coiffure incongruous against the warehouse's industrial backdrop. Her sharp eyes took in the makeshift command center without comment before settling on Imani. Dr. Carter, you're a difficult woman to locate. Under the circumstances, that was intentional, Imani replied evenly. How did you find us? Malcolm Reynolds, head of security, tracked a device. Not yours, she added quickly. You've been careful, but someone here wasn't. All eyes turned to their electronic equipment, questions of betrayal hanging unspoken. I'm not here to shut you down, Victoria continued, surprising everyone. I'm here because Malcolm came to me privately with concerns about Armstrong's activities, about protocols I was never informed existed. Imani studied the older woman, searching for deception. Why should I believe you're not part of the system? Protecting them? Victoria's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly, revealing something like regret. Because I hired you specifically for your reputation fighting discrimination cases. I wanted someone who would recognize the problems and address them from within. I just never anticipated Armstrong and Whitmore would go to these lengths. You knew? Jordan demanded, anger flaring. I suspected, Victoria corrected. Corporate culture problems, occasional concerning reports. But evidence kept disappearing before reaching board level. That's why I pushed to create Dr. Carter's position, with direct board access. You used me as bait, Imani realized, uncertain whether to be furious or impressed. I underestimated their response, Victoria acknowledged. For that, I apologize. But right now, we have more pressing concerns. The emergency board meeting starts in 90 minutes. Armstrong has prepared a complete restructuring proposal eliminating the legal compliance division and your position with it. Imani exchanged glances with her allies. We'll be there. Victoria raised an eyebrow. You've been barred from the building. Then you'll have to get us in, Imani replied, gathering her evidence files. Because what I have will interest your board considerably more than Armstrong's restructuring plans. For the first time, Victoria Lambert smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her stern features. I was hoping you'd say that. The executive floor of Sky West headquarters buzzed with tension as board members filed into the glass-walled conference room. Trent Armstrong stood at the head of the table, confidently arranging presentation materials beside Walter Whitmore, whose scowl deepened when he checked his watch for the 3rd time. Victoria's late, Walter noted, irritation evident. Unusual for her. Traffic, perhaps, Armstrong replied smoothly, though unease flickered behind his practiced smile. We can begin without her. I've prepared a thorough analysis of the legal division's redundancies and outsourcing opportunities. The elevator doors opened, and Victoria Lambert strode into the hallway, her expression unreadable. Behind her walked Imani Carter, head high despite her rumpled appearance, followed by Malcolm Reynolds, SkyWest's head of security. "What is she doing here?" Walter demanded, rising to his feet as they entered the boardroom. "She's on administrative leave pending termination." "By whose authority?" Victoria asked calmly, taking her seat at the table's head. "I don't recall the board voting on any termination. She's disrupting company operations, creating a hostile environment, and bringing negative publicity," Armstrong interjected, struggling to maintain his composure. "As COO, I have authority to place employees on administrative leave for cause. As board chair, I have authority to invite counsel to board meetings," Victoria countered. "Dr. Carter has information directly relevant to today's agenda." The 12 board members exchanged uncertain glances, corporate politics recalibrating in real time. Armstrong moved quickly to regain control, signaling security stationed outside the door. "She's been barred from the premises. Security will escort her out." Malcolm stepped forward. "Begging your pardon, sir, but my team takes direction from the board chair in matters of executive floor access." Armstrong's face tightened with barely contained rage. "This is highly irregular, Victoria. We have a clear agenda." "Which has changed?" Victoria interrupted, distributing tablets to each board member. "Before we discuss restructuring the legal division, we should understand why our new chief legal counsel has become the target of such extraordinary measures." "This is absurd," Walter blustered. "We're not here to indulge conspiracy theories from an employee who clearly cannot adapt to our corporate culture." Imani placed her evidence folders on the table, her voice steady despite the hostile environment. "Board members, I came to SkyWest to strengthen legal compliance and address potential liability issues. Within 24 hours of arriving, I witnessed and documented a clear case of employee misconduct with racial implications. Since then, I've been subjected to evidence tampering, witness intimidation, media manipulation, and personal retaliation, extending to an unwarranted custody challenge regarding my 5-year-old daughter." "Preposterous," Walter dismissed. "You're constructing elaborate excuses for your own failure to integrate." "Everything I'm stating is documented," Imani continued undeterred, "including email exchanges between Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Whitmore discussing Protocol 17 and other systematic procedures for suppressing discrimination complaints." Several board members looked up sharply from their tablets, where the emails were displayed. Armstrong's confident facade cracked slightly. "Those are internal security communications taken out of context, and obtained illegally, I might add." "They were provided by a whistleblower through proper channels," Imani corrected, "along with documentation of 23 separate protocols for handling various types of complaints based on passenger demographics." "This is a waste of valuable time," Walter insisted, though beads of sweat had appeared on his forehead. "Victoria, I move to end this irregular presentation and return to our planned agenda." "Second," Armstrong quickly added. Victoria remained impassive. "The chair recognizes Dr. Carter has the floor. Please continue." "While investigating these protocols," Imani stated, advancing to the most damaging evidence, "financial irregularities were discovered. Specifically, operational funds being diverted to offshore entities controlled by Mr. Armstrong, with percentage payments to accounts linked to Mr. Whitmore." The room fell silent. Armstrong's face went pale, his hand instinctively moving toward his laptop. "Those allegations are completely unfounded," he declared, voice rising. "This is character assassination. The documentation has been provided to each of you," Imani continued calmly, "including transfer records, shell company registrations, and the algorithmic pattern used to disguise the transactions." Several board members were now openly staring at Armstrong and Whitmore, whose expressions had transformed from confidence to barely concealed panic. "This is outrageous!" Heather Whitmore's voice shattered the tense silence as she burst into the boardroom, face contorted with rage. "You can't let her destroy everything we've built." "Ms. Whitmore, you are not authorized to be in this meeting," Victoria stated firmly. "Tell them, Uncle Walter. Tell them what she's really doing. playing the race card to cover her incompetence. She's turning the company against us just like all of them do. The naked racism in Heather's outburst visibly shocked several board members. Walter grabbed his niece's arm, attempting to silence her, but she pulled away. I did nothing wrong. That child was misbehaving, endangering other passengers. Anyone would have done the same thing. It's not my fault if these people can't control their children and then cry racism whenever they're called out. Armstrong attempted damage control, signaling frantically for security to remove Heather. But the damage was done. The room had heard her unfiltered contempt, confirming everything in Imani's presentation. Walter moved to his laptop, frantically, typing what appeared to be a delete command. Malcolm stepped forward smoothly, disconnecting the device from power and network. Evidence preservation, sir, he explained with professional detachment. Standard procedure during investigations. This is a coup, Armstrong declared, desperation replacing his usual polish. Victoria has orchestrated this entire charade to seize control. She's been planning this for months, bringing in Carter specifically to manufacture these allegations. That's an interesting theory, Victoria replied coolly, though it fails to explain the documented financial fraud or Ms. Whitmore's behavior just now. You have no proof that would stand up in court, Walter threatened, attempting to rally. And several board members here would face significant personal consequences if certain past indiscretions became public. The implicit blackmail silenced the room momentarily. Imani watched as fear flickered across several faces. Armstrong, sensing advantage, pressed forward. We've all made compromises for the company's benefit. Arrangements that could be misinterpreted, if taken out of context. Do we really want to start dismantling the systems that have protected all of us? It was a desperate gambit, but effective. The mood in the room shifted as board members contemplated their own vulnerabilities. Imani recognized the critical juncture. Board members, I understand the impulse to protect established systems, but ask yourselves this. If they've used these protocols against me, a senior executive with legal training and resources, what have they done to passengers and employees with far less power? And what's your liability when those cases eventually come to light? Victoria seized the opening. I call for an immediate vote. Motion to suspend Mr. Armstrong and Ms. Whitmore pending full investigation. Appoint an independent counsel to review all discrimination complaints from the past 5 years and audit all financial transactions authorized by Mr. Armstrong. Second, offered the youngest board member, breaking the tense silence. What followed was the most dramatic boardroom vote in SkyWest's history. By a margin of 8-4, the motion carried. Armstrong and Walter were escorted from the premises, their access revoked, their company devices confiscated. As the meeting concluded, Victoria approached Imani. We have significant repair work ahead. The company will, of course, issue a public apology and ensure all retaliatory actions are immediately reversed, including the custody situation, Imani specified, her priority clear. Already being addressed. Judge Pierce has been reported to the Judicial Ethics Committee, and our attorneys are filing an emergency motion to vacate his ruling based on undisclosed conflicts of interest. For the first time in days, Imani felt the crushing pressure begin to lift. She had won, not just for herself and Zaria, but potentially for countless others who had suffered under SkyWest's discriminatory practices. What she didn't know was that the most dangerous confrontation still awaited her. 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of restoration and reform. SkyWest issued a public apology to Imani and Zaria, acknowledging the incident and the subsequent cover-up attempt. Judge Pierce recused himself from the custody case after the ethics investigation announcement, and Michael, confronted with evidence of how he'd been manipulated by SkyWest operatives, withdrew his emergency petition. The independent counsel appointed to review discrimination complaints uncovered hundreds of incidents systematically buried over the years, leading to settlement offers and policy changes. Desiree was promoted to customer service director, tasked with implementing new training procedures. Imani, reinstated with a public apology and expanded authority, spent long hours restructuring the company's legal compliance framework. Most importantly, Zaria had begun therapy with a child psychologist specializing in trauma, and small signs of improvement appeared. A smile here, a full sentence there, moments of her old exuberance breaking through the lingering anxiety. "You should be proud," Victoria told Imani as they concluded a productive strategy session late one evening. "In less than a month, you've initiated more meaningful change than we've seen in decades." "It's just the beginning," Imani replied, gathering her files. "The cultural issues run deeper than policy changes can address overnight." Victoria nodded agreement. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's board presentation on the new reporting system needs you at full strength." The SkyWest headquarters parking garage was nearly empty at 9:37 p.m. Imani's footsteps echoed between concrete pillars as she made her way to her car, mind already organizing tomorrow's talking points. The overhead lights flickered briefly, maintenance issues still being addressed after years of cost-cutting under Armstrong's leadership. She didn't notice the figure lurking between parked cars until a familiar voice shattered the silence. "You ruined everything." Imani turned to find Heather Whitmore standing 10 feet away, her once immaculate appearance now disheveled, her eyes wild with unchecked fury. "Heather, you shouldn't be here. Your clearance has been revoked." 15 years, Heather continued as if Imani hadn't spoken. 15 years building my career, working twice as hard as the affirmative action hires, earning every promotion. Then you waltz in with your diversity ticket and destroy it all in a month. "You destroyed your own career when you struck my child," Imani stated firmly, subtly reaching for her phone. "The company is simply acknowledging what happened and making necessary changes." "Necessary changes," Heather mimicked bitterly. "You mean dismantling standards? Letting incompetence slide if it comes with the right skin color? Punishing excellence? To coddle mediocrity?" Imani's fingers found her phone's emergency button, but before she could activate it, she noticed what Heather partially concealed behind her leg. A tire iron gripped in white-knuckled fingers. "Heather, this isn't going to solve anything. You're only making your situation worse." "Worse?" Heather laughed, a brittle sound devoid of humor. "I've lost my career, my reputation, my apartment. My uncle won't even take my calls since you exposed his financial arrangements. What exactly do I have left to lose?" Imani glanced around the garage, searching for security cameras. The nearest one had been disabled, its red recording light dark. Not coincidental. "You didn't lose those things because of me," Imani said carefully, maintaining distance between them while scanning for escape routes. "Your actions had consequences. That's accountability, not persecution." "Always the perfect words," Heather sneered, stepping closer. "Trent warned me about you. Said you were dangerous because you knew how to play the game better than we did. Said if we didn't stop you immediately, you'd dismantle everything." "Armstrong manipulated you, Heather. He used your prejudices to make you a scapegoat while he stole millions." Heather's expression twisted with rage. "There it is, calling me racist because I don't bow down to your kind. Because I expect the same standards from everyone regardless of their precious victimhood status." "My 5-year-old daughter wasn't claiming victimhood. She was retrieving a stuffed animal during turbulence. You responded with physical violence because of assumptions you made based on her race." "I responded to a safety violation," Heather shouted, advancing another step. "Which is my job. A job you've now made impossible for anyone to do properly, because they'll all be terrified of offending some protected group." Imani recognized the dangerous escalation in Heather's tone and body language. This wasn't just an angry confrontation. It was a planned attack. The disabled camera, the late hour, the weapon. Armstrong might be gone, but his influence lingered. "Who told you I'd be working late tonight, Heather? Who suggested you wait for me here?" The question momentarily threw Heather off balance. "Nobody. I figured it out myself." "The same way you figured out how to disable that security camera? The same way you knew exactly which entrance I'd use?" "Someone's using you again, Heather, making you take all the risk while they stay safely distant." Uncertainty flickered across Heather's face before hardening into renewed determination. "It doesn't matter. You need to understand there are consequences for people like you who don't know your place, who think you can change rules that have worked for decades just because they don't favor you enough." She raised the tire iron, stepping fully into the light. "My career is over. but so is your crusade. Imani tensed, preparing to defend herself, knowing her options were limited against an armed attacker. The moment stretched between them, Heather's breathing ragged with hate and adrenaline, Imani calculating survival odds. The stairwell door slammed open, breaking the standoff. Malcolm Reynolds emerged, his security uniform crisp despite the late hour. "Ms. Whitmore," he stated calmly, though his stance was alert. "Put down the weapon." "Stay out of this, Malcolm," Heather warned, not lowering the tire iron. "This isn't your fight." "Actually, it is. Ensuring executive safety is literally my job description." He moved carefully toward them. "And unlike some, I take my job seriously." "You're just another sellout," Heather spat. "Taking her side against your own company." "Dr. Carter is the company now," Malcolm replied evenly. "You're just a disgraced former employee trespassing with a weapon. I've already called police. They're 2 minutes out." Heather's resolve visibly wavered, the reality of her situation finally penetrating her rage. The tire iron lowered slightly. "This isn't over," she told Imani, voice breaking. "People are watching. People who understand what you're really doing. They won't let you destroy everything." Malcolm moved between them. "It's over tonight, Ms. Whitmore. Make the smart choice." For a terrible moment, Imani thought Heather might still attack, might choose mutual destruction over surrender. Then the fight seemed to drain from her, the weapon clattering to the concrete as distant sirens became audible. "How did you know?" Imani asked Malcolm as Heather slumped against a car, defeated. "I didn't trust the coincidence of that camera. Malfunction," he admitted. "Been monitoring the garage entrances from my office. When I saw her come in without badging, I checked her recent communications. With Armstrong?" Malcolm nodded grimly. "And others. There's still a network inside the company resisting the changes. People who benefited from the old system, who see equity as a threat rather than progress." As police led Heather away in handcuffs, Imani studied Malcolm's expression. "You knew about the protocols before all this, didn't you?" His eyes met hers steadily. "I enforced them, not proudly, but I did. Because that was the system. Why help change it now?" Malcolm's professional demeanor cracked slightly, revealing something more personal. "I have a daughter too, 8 years old. Last year, a flight attendant accused her of stealing from the beverage cart when she was just looking for a napkin. I filed a complaint. It disappeared. That's when I realized, if the system doesn't protect my child despite my position within it, what's it really protecting?" In that moment of shared understanding, Imani recognized the true path forward, not just policy changes or legal reforms, but individual awakenings multiplied across the organization. Change would come not just from the top down, but from within. Sunlight streamed through the windows of SkyWest's renovated headquarters as Imani reviewed quarterly compliance reports with satisfaction. The transformation over the past year had been remarkable, though not without significant challenges. Armstrong and Walter Whitmore had been indicted on multiple charges including fraud, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. Their trials were ongoing, generating occasional negative press, but ultimately validating the company's new direction. More importantly, SkyWest had implemented comprehensive anti-discrimination training for all employees, created an anonymous reporting system with third-party oversight, and established clear consequences for violations regardless of position or connections. The initial resistance had gradually given way to acceptance, then active participation as employees recognized the benefits of a more equitable workplace. "Dr. Carter." Her assistant's voice interrupted her reflections. "Your 4 o'clock is here." Imani welcomed the representatives from the National Civil Rights Coalition who had approached her about becoming their corporate accountability spokesperson. The role would mean leaving SkyWest for a broader advocacy platform, a decision she had been contemplating for weeks. "Your work here has become a model for corporate transformation," the coalition's director noted. "Imagine what you could accomplish on a national scale, helping other companies implement similar changes." "I'm honored by the offer," Imani replied, "but I need to consider my family priorities carefully." After the meeting concluded, Imani's phone chimed with a reminder. Zaria's flight landed in 30 minutes. Unlike previous years when business travel meant leaving her daughter with Eleanor, this trip had been different. Zaria had accompanied Michael to his conference in Denver, a sign of the co-parenting relationship they had rebuilt from the ashes of last year's custody battle. The terminal bustled with activity as Imani waited at the gate. Her heart lightened at the sight of Zaria skipping ahead of Michael, the child's smile no longer shadowed by past trauma. The therapy had worked. Wonders, combined with time and the knowledge that her mother had fought for her and won. "Mommy!" Zaria launched herself into Imani's arms. "Guess what? Miss Desiree let me see the cockpit." Imani smiled at the familiar name. "Did she? That was nice of her." "Uh-huh. She's the nicest flight attendant ever. She gave me wings." Zaria proudly displayed the plastic pins affixed to her jacket. Michael approached, nodding respectfully to Imani. Their relationship remained formal but functional, strengthened by his eventual recognition of how he'd been manipulated during the custody battle. She did great on the flight, not a single moment of anxiety. For a child who had once been unable to see an airplane without trembling, this represented monumental progress. Imani hugged Zaria tighter, overwhelmed by the milestone. "Dr. Carter." Desiree Washington approached, her senior flight attendant uniform now adorned with customer service director pins. "Good to see you in person." "You too, Desiree. Thank you for looking after my favorite passenger." Desiree smiled warmly at Zaria. "My pleasure. She's a natural flyer." Looking back to Imani, she added, "The new protocols are working well. 2. Potential incidents de-escalated properly this month alone. The reporting system is being used, and people actually believe something will happen when they file complaints. That's what accountability looks like," Imani replied. "How's the new training program being received?" Some initial grumbling, but mostly positive, especially from crews who were afraid to report problems before. They feel protected now. Desiree's expression turned thoughtful. "We're still dealing with the occasional Armstrong loyalist, but they're becoming fewer every month." As they parted ways, Imani reflected on how far they'd come and the work still ahead. Victoria had been right. Changing a corporate culture wasn't an overnight process, but a continuous journey requiring vigilance and commitment. Later that evening, as Zaria chattered excitedly about her trip over dinner, Imani's phone buzzed with an email. The subject line stopped her cold. "National Airline Industry Diversity Award, winner announcement." SkyWest's transformation had been recognized with the industry's highest honor for inclusion initiatives. The accompanying press release highlighted the company's journey from problematic policies to industry leadership, with Imani's name prominently featured. "What is it, Mommy?" Zaria asked, noting her mother's surprise. "Just good news from work, sweetheart." Imani set the phone aside, choosing to be fully present with her daughter, rather than dwelling on professional accomplishments. After Zaria was tucked in bed, Imani sat on her balcony overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline, contemplating the Civil Rights Coalition's offer. The professional recognition was gratifying, but the real measure of success lay sleeping down the hall. A little girl who no longer flinched when touched unexpectedly, who could board an airplane without fear, who trusted that her mother would protect her from injustice. Her phone rang, Victoria Lambert's name appearing on screen. "Congratulations on the award," Victoria said without preamble. "Well deserved." "Thank you. It's the team's achievement, not just mine." "Which is exactly why I'm calling. The board discussed your potential departure today. While we understand the coalition's offer is compelling, we'd like to counter with our own proposal." Imani listened as Victoria outlined an expanded role, Executive Vice President of Corporate Ethics and Inclusion, with authority across all SkyWest operations and a seat on the board itself. "You've started something important here, Imani. Something that needs your continued guidance to fully take root." "I'm honored," Imani replied truthfully. "But my decision will ultimately come down to what's best for Zaria." "I understand completely," Victoria said. "Family first. Though I must add, the impact you've had here will affect thousands of families, including Zaria's. What she experienced was horrible, But your response has created protections for countless children who might otherwise have suffered similar treatment. That's a powerful legacy. After ending the call, Imani opened the coalition's offer letter again, weighing it against Victoria's proposal. Both presented opportunities to expand the work she'd begun, to create systemic change beyond a single incident or company. The question was where her influence would be most effective. Soft footsteps padded down the hallway as Zaria appeared in her pajamas, clutching her teddy bear. "I had a dream about the airplane, Mommy." Imani tensed, preparing for another nightmare episode. "Was it scary, baby?" To her surprise, Zaria shook her head. "No, I was flying it. Ms. Desiree said girls can be pilots too. Can I be a pilot when I grow up?" Relief and joy washed through Imani as she pulled her daughter onto her lap. "You can. Be anything you want to be, Zaria. And Mommy will always make sure the path is clear for you to fly." As Zaria drifted back to sleep in her arms, Imani realized her decision had already been made. The work of transformation, whether at Sky West or through the coalition, wasn't just about policies and consequences. It was about creating a world where her daughter could pursue her dreams without artificial barriers or discriminatory treatment. A world where justice wasn't just an aspiration, but an expectation. One slap had ignited a chain reaction that ultimately transformed an entire corporate culture. One mother's determination had overcome a system designed to silence and intimidate. One child's trauma had become the catalyst for protecting countless others. Tomorrow, Imani would accept Victoria's offer, continuing to build on the foundation they'd established at Sky West while collaborating with the coalition on broader initiatives. The path forward wasn't either or but both and, using every available platform to advance the changes her daughter deserved to see in the world. For tonight, though, she simply held Zaria close, savoring the victory embodied in her daughter's peaceful sleep and newfound dreams of flying. In Flight Attendant Slap's 5-year-old black girl, we see powerful lessons about systemic discrimination and the courage to fight back. First, this story demonstrates how racial bias can manifest in everyday situations, even in professional settings, where standards of conduct should protect everyone equally. Second, it reveals how institutions often protect themselves through complicated mechanisms that silence victims, especially those with less power or resources. Third, we learn that accountability requires both individual courage and collective action. Imani could not have succeeded alone without allies who risked their own security to stand for justice. Perhaps the most important lesson is that meaningful change begins with refusing to accept injustice, even when the cost is high. When Imani prioritized her daughter's dignity over her career advancement, she set in motion events that ultimately transformed an entire corporate culture. This reminds us that systems don't change by themselves. They change when brave individuals refuse to participate in their dysfunction, when allies emerge from unexpected places, and when people in power recognize that maintaining the status quo costs more than reforming it. Finally, the story teaches us that justice isn't just about punishment, but about creating new systems that protect everyone equally, especially the most vulnerable. A single incident can be the catalyst for transformation that benefits countless others. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and had to decide whether to speak up? What would you have done in Imani's position when faced with such powerful opposition? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe in standing against racial injustice wherever it appears, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that expose the reality of discrimination in America. Remember, every time you share these stories, you help create the awareness needed for real change. Thank you for watching, and may you always find the courage to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost.